This is Grapplers Talk.
Appreciate all of the love and all of the support that we get throughout this podcast and throughout doing this thing. And man, I talk about it all the time, the connections and everything that gets made with this podcast. It's really remarkable and really incredible. And I'm thrilled to talk to a gentleman today. A lot of people focus on the main grappling arts, the wrestling, the Jiu-Jitsu. Those things are great, right? And I love them. And obviously, that's what I specialize in. But there are multiple other types of grappling arts, and I'm excited to talk about some today with my friend. We're going to get into some interesting things, some interesting topics, but I'm thrilled to introduce to the fans here today on Grapplers Talk, all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, joining me via Zoom, Taylor Weber, man. What is up? And first of all, welcome to Grapplers Talk, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just got done coaching practice and wanted to hop on and do this podcast with you. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's truly a pleasure to have you on the show. And, I just got to say, first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your day. And, let's just get right into it. Let's not skip out on any time. Let's talk exactly about how you got introduced into the world of grappling. What was the first sport? Because you're into judo and also sambo. So let's talk about how those tie in together and how you got introduced into the sport in general.
So I got introduced into judo really when I was 3 years old. I had like one little tournament, but I kind of stopped it until I was 8 by my father. We have a family history of judo. My grandfather is a judo black belt. My father's a judo black belt. My sister did a little bit of judo too, but it's really in my blood. So I'm a judo black belt. My whole family. And then growing up, I did that from 8 to about 20. My goal was to go to the Olympics, which is extremely expensive. So that was one of the main limiting factors of being able to go to the Olympics. It wasn't really a skill issue. It was being able to travel to all these tournaments. So then I got invited to go do Sambo by Mikhail Kazitsky, vice president of USA Sambo, at the Pan American Championships. I lost first round that time by an ankle lock, which I had never done leg locks before, so that was completely new to me. But I fell in love with the sport, watched combat sambo, which I'm getting into now, and I have been over the past 2 years. But I vowed to come back and win the Pan-Ams the next year, and I ended up doing that in 2022, winning my very first Pan American Championship in sambo. But the sports are pretty similar. Judo and sambo both have like the jacket, and we're both stand-up focused. But sambo, you can grab legs like you could in old judo, and you can leg lock. So that's kind of how that transfer worked. I started in judo, and then I learned the leg grabs a little bit from wrestling, which is in jiu-jitsu. Learned the leg locks, and then kind of made for a full sambo game from there.
Yeah. Sambo's a little bit different as far as, jiu-jitsu. Everyone's wearing the gi, obviously, and obviously you have the no gi side of grappling as well. And then you go to a traditional judo background, and they got those thick, heavy gis, right? And those things
Gotta love the double weave gis.
Right. Those things are insane. If you've ever grabbed somebody that wears a judo gi in a room, those things are really, really thick. And so talk about the difference in sambo. Now it seems like, it's not as popular here in the United States as it should be. But if you're a real big fan, you can dive deep into it and start to search out the athletes and really start to gain the knowledge. There's a lot of highlight videos of sambo matches out on the internet because it seems like an explosive grappling art. Am I correct on that, or am I describing it the right way?
You are absolutely correct. It's extremely explosive. You have the big like highlight reel throws with the upper body stuff, like the judo style throws. And then you have really, really like explosive wrestling too. You got really big fireman's carries using the jacket and the legs, big blast doubles. And then the big thing too with sambo is throwing straight into a submission. Throw straight to a submission, because similar to judo, we only have 5 to 10 seconds to work on the ground. So we're throwing hard and then immediately submitting as fast as possible, or pinning. We have the pin as well, but it's it's fast. You got to be fast. You only have 4 minutes to win the match, and there's no like overtime, so you got to be the guy ahead at the end of the 4 minutes. So it's very explosive. You're correct there for sure.
Now, do a lot of Sambo people, is it something you wear wrestling shoes while doing? Is that correct?
We wear a kind of wrestling shoe. We have our own shoes. It's a Sambo shoe. It's a leather bottom compared to the like rubbery bottom that like has a lot more traction from wrestling.
Right.
Ours slide just a little bit more. They feel a lot more like just feet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I've always been curious about that. And if you could, just for the listeners, because we don't get a lot of Sambo knowledge out here, and there is a Sambo guy in our area, Val Ignatov, and he's very well versed in the Sambo arts, and he's worked with professional fighters like Nick and Nate Diaz and Steve Heath and some really famous names out in the scene. But what does the red gi and the blue gi signify? Like, you always see the red versus the blue. Like, I know that's not only for competition, but could you describe how that exactly works with that?
So it's very similar to judo where it's just like the white and the blue gi. We don't have a lot of like extra colors other than the red and the blue, and it's mostly just a Soviet aesthetics thing. Since it's a Soviet era sport, their aesthetics really play into that very deep red and very like deep blue that you would see in the Soviet era and a lot of different things. It doesn't
Yeah.
really have a specific meaning outside of that. It was more of a style thing for the
Yeah.
Soviets.
So let's talk about your judo now. Like, obviously, judo's another one. There's not as many schools on every single corner. You can't find a judo spot like you can a jiu-jitsu or a taekwondo school out there. Let's talk about the difference in training in judo. Now, judo for most grapplers or most people that follow it, right? There's a lot of throws, there's a lot of setups, there's a lot of gi entanglements. Talk to me about that and how well it transitions into your jujitsu game as well if you're going into the gi and jujitsu.
Yeah, so the judo and sambo training are fairly similar for me. The methodology with them is very much the same. We're doing a lot of uchikomis or fit-ins for nails where we're going through the off-balancing of the throw into like the point where you would throw and stopping. We're doing a lot of that, a lot of speed throws, throwing in the crash pad a lot, everything like that. A lot of randori with very short ground time. And what I found is that when I go to jujitsu and I'm able to submit higher level belts than I am, because I'm a blue belt in jujitsu as well, but anytime I do get higher level belts, it's because I throw them and they're not prepared for me to immediately enter into a submission. Like it's if I spend too much time on the ground with them, they might get me tied up in something that I'm not quite used to. But if I just throw them and boom, blast straight into like an armbar, like Osotogari or like a rear trip straight into an armbar, um, that sort of thing catches a lot of people off guard because they're not used to take down straight into a submission. I see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, they take down, then they slowly pass the guard, or I try to throw and not have to pass the guard at all. I
Right.
feel like
Get
that's
past the guard on the throw. Yeah.
yeah, I just throw to a pin rather than like that's where the judo aspect probably is better than the wrestling sometimes in jiu-jitsu because the wrestlers when they grab the legs it's very easy to get like a half guard or like a full guard whereas if you throw a hip throw like Ogoshi or like a head and arm throw like Koshiguruma you're landing in a pin. Koshiguruma can be bad sometimes because they can take your back but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the competition scene and how that works. You've done quite a bit of competition in sambo and judo, right? And so, talking about the competition aspect and the point structure and how those things differ than other traditional grappling arts.
So both the sports that I mainly compete in, Sambo and Judo, they're a tournament structure. Most of the time, local level, they're double elimination. So you have a chance to win back up from the losers bracket all the way to gold. At the international level, it's always repertoire. So you have to make it all the way up to at least the quarterfinals, and then if you lose, the guy who beat you has to win to finals to be dragged into the losers bracket, and then you can only go up to gold. Um, Can you restate the end of that question as well, please?
So yeah, I was just talking about how it differs from others, like the point structures and things of that nature.
Gotcha. So both sports are very heavily takedown focused. Um, so throwing straight to the back is the most important thing. In judo, you can throw straight to the back and go down with them, and that's ippon. End of the match. Match is over. In sambo, you have to stay standing to show like utter dominance to get that total victory is what we call it, which is end of the match no matter how you are in points. So ippon or like the end of the match is even harder in sambo, and then you half the points. You only get 4 points in sambo for throwing straight to the back, and you go down with them. Any other, like now it starts to go down for both sports. Throwing on the side, shoulder, stomach, anything like that is yuko in judo, 1 point in sambo, doubles if you stay standing. And then we also have pin points. So in judo, you have like the 20 seconds pin, you get ippon into the match. 10 seconds is wazari, 5 seconds is yuko. In sambo, it's 2 points for, 4 points for 10 seconds of a pin, and then, 2 points for 10 seconds of a pin and 4 points for 20 seconds. It's half in combat sambo. So we really reward control of the opponent in every sort of fashion. We want to control the fight and win it as fast as possible is really the goal. And that's why you see it really doing well in the UFC, is because those guys don't care about being on bottom. They do not want to be on bottom. They want to take the guy down, beat him up, and submit him as fast as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, it's a very interesting art. It's a lot different. It's a lot more effective, right? Straight to the point. You don't want to spend too much time playing around in certain things. Once you get that throw, it's completely attack. And especially if you talk to older traditional judoists, judo players, the way like everything was, it was a throw into an arm bar, and it's a very effective arm break at that point. There's not much play in that, and it can really catch some other types of grapplers off guard, and it can be a definite adjustment. Taylor, talk to me about some of the competition scene that you've been a part of. Talking to me about some of the big matches that some of the accolades you have in the judo and the sambo scene.
Yeah, so to list out the accolades, for sambo, I'm a 3-time Pan American champion, 4-time national champion for combat, and I got 2 silvers along with that. Probably the most impressive thing as of late is last year in 2024, I beat Merab Dvalishvili in Sport Sambo on a day's notice. So that one was really cool.
How much do you weigh? Like, there's got to be a little bit of a weight difference in that, right?
No, I weigh 141 when I weigh in for competition. I walk around at like 155. But yeah, we competed at the 64 kilo division in Sambo. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how do the weigh-ins work? Are you guys weighing in the gis, no gi? How exactly does that work for Sambo?
For weigh-ins, we typically do day before, and we're basically stripping down to nothing. We got underwear on, but that's it for our weigh-ins. We don't weigh in with the kurka on.
Right. It's the kurka. That's what it's called in Sambo.
Yes, they're actually, to me, a better version of the gi because we have these little wings right here, which are an added grip, and then the belt goes through little loops so it doesn't fall off. You don't have to deal with all the stalling of people taking forever to put their belt back on.
Right.
Or the belts being all over the mat. They just stay on.
That's interesting. Do you find that gets in the way ever of anything like the loops or anything like that? Like people get tangled in the loops with their fingers or toes or?
Not at all. It's never happened to me where anything like that has happened. It just keeps everything nice and tidy, honestly. And then we wear shorts, so there's no like gi pants to come untied or anything either. It's very like everything's nice and tidy. There's nothing hanging around like belts everywhere. People having to retie their pants every 5 seconds. It's very nice.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge difference. Have you seen any of the type of matches where they're in like a pit style, right? Like Karate Combat does them, and a lot of jiu-jitsu promotions are starting to put those out and put grappling matches in those types of pits. Now with a judo or sambo style, that might be really, really cool to watch. What's your thought on a pit style grappling match in the sambo scene or in the judo scene?
Well, it's something. I haven't seen it yet, but honestly, I'd love to do it myself. Something like back, like when I'm pushed up against the pit, using that as a push off into a throw, like Osotogari or rear trip. I saw J Flow run up the pit and do a like big hip throw as he came down. That would be really cool. I mean, it also stops that you walk off the mat and then you have to reset sort of thing. So that would be really nice. Terrible for my cardio, but very nice and it'd be pretty cool. It would make the matches flow a lot smoother for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious. I want to back up a little bit. We didn't really, we kind of just brushed across the fact that you went up against a UFC champion. But talk about the match. Like, where did you feel? Did you feel like there were any areas of that match that you were losing, or where did you feel like? Did you feel like it went in your direction, like because of a game plan? How did you exactly break that down?
So the probably one part of the match that I was losing was the cardio, but everything else I pretty much dominated him on. Um, it was like 10 seconds in at most that I went for a inside trip or a kochigake, went down, came back up to the hip, and went for an ogoshi, blasted him. It was a major hip throw, blasted him through the mat. He went flying through the air. Big 4-point throw, pinned him for about 10 seconds. That was a 2-point throw and 2-point pin. I was up by 4 points in the first 10 to 15 seconds. And then I will say, like, his cardio was insane. When I watch his UFC fights, it's pretty crazy, his cardio. I don't know how he gets that. It's definitely almost inhuman. And then I throw him for another big inside trip Ouchigari later in the match. He was actually really pissed during the match because he kept shooting for double legs and I'd sprawl again, and I'd sprawl again, and we kept getting reset. So much so that at one point he slaps me across the face and shoots in for a double leg. So for a guy that talks about like respect as much as he does, especially with Umar, I think he's lacking a little bit of it himself, considering he also didn't shake my hand at the end of the match. He didn't show up to the podium and just kind of has been brushing off that loss ever since. Not very honorable and definitely not very respectful on his part.
Now, I'm not in that scene at all, but how often is he around that? Is he doing competitions regularly, or what's his competition status like when it comes to that?
I mean, he is a silver medalist in the world championships in combat sambo. He grew up doing judo, and then when they took out leg wraps, he started doing sambo. He only showed up kind of on a whim, from what I heard, and he expected there to be no challenge because the day before, I saw like his Instagram post and people were like, "Oh no, America has no level." Under one of those comments, if you look back and you see it, it's me saying, "Yeah, you'll see."
Yeah.
So yeah, I showed him. He didn't expect that any American was going to be able to beat him, but I showed him that we're here for real. Guy was actually
Yeah.
there whenever they like when the podium was going on and they were calling our names. He just decided not to show up. One of my buddies was like, "Hey, Merab, like they're calling your name."
Yeah.
Ignored him.
You know, you seem very confident for a younger man. Like, where do you feel like that confidence comes from? Is it in your training and your grappling that you trust so much, or but you seem like, you know, like it's just another day in the office for you.
Um, I just honestly, I tend to live up to pressure really well. Like, I mean, I train really hard all the time. I work my ass off, just like anyone else who's fighting, like training my ass off. But I really do feel like I can live up to the pressure. I'm going to take every opportunity that I can get, and I'm going to make it happen. That's just what I believe. I know how good I am, and I know how hard I train, and I don't know. I will do everything to make something like that happen. I live up to the pressure very well.
Yeah. Break down your training schedule, your diet, your sleep habits. Break that down when you have a competition coming up. Obviously, when you're not competing, it may differ a little bit, but when you're really training for a competition or you got something big like Pan Am's coming up, what's your regimen like?
So I'm on the mats probably 5, 6 hours a day in general between coaching and training. Uh, but I lift 3 times a week, probably like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is what my goals are for that. I teach a lot of private lessons, so sometimes it gets mixed up. But um, usually I'm coaching for 2 hours a night, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and then I'm training for another 2 hours after that. Grappling, whether it's Sambo or Judo, straight into striking combat Sambo or MMA. So I'm training at least 2 hours a day and then lifting in between as well. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you like focus on sleep or anything like that, or how many hours of sleep are you getting a night when you're in training?
I'm trying to get at least 7 to 8 hours sleep a night for sure. I'm about to start wearing an Apple Watch to track my sleep. That's something I'm going to work on in the future. And diet's something that I've been working on. I'm playing around with the idea of moving down weight classes. So trying to cut back calories a lot, cut back on carbs and dairy a little bit as well. But otherwise, like I don't track macros too much.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned combat sambo, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into that and really talk about what that entails. In jiu-jitsu, we have combat jiu-jitsu, where, it's jiu-jitsu with strikes and with some palm strikes and some slaps and things of that nature. But people get real crazy with it. People have been knocked out from it. Talk to me about the difference in combat sambo compared to regular sambo. And then you also mentioned you do a little bit of striking as well. And we'll dive a little bit deeper on that too. But let's first talk about combat sambo.
So combat sambo is the same thing as regular sambo, except for we're adding punches, kicks, elbows, knees, headbutts, and we're adding chokes in there as well. So it's basically a full-on MMA fight in a like gi top. It's only 4 minutes. There's no rounds. Same format as Sport Sambo with that, but we're doing everything you can do in MMA and more. So that's really why so many Sambo guys are doing so well in the UFC is like you have probably 100 or more amateur fights that aren't on your record, and you get so much experience from fighting a tournament style fight. You're fighting multiple people in the same day. You're getting a bunch of different styles, and you get to do it so many more times than any other amateur MMA guy. All those guys have done smokers every so often. We're getting into a legitimate MMA fight sometimes every other month.
Yeah.
And we're getting multiple matches on those days.
Yeah. So you said headbutts in that, right? How exactly does that work? I've never seen a headbutt in a sambo match. I'm dying to see it now. I'm gonna dive deep on it. But
sorry.
No. Is there any protective gear whatsoever? Any sort of headgear? Any sort of gloves? Anything like that to protect yourself or your partner?
Yeah, we have headgear and we have 4-ounce gloves as well as shin guards. So pro combat sambo is a thing where they put it in a cage. Those guys don't have headgear and they don't do headbutts. But regular combat sambo that's sanctioned through FIOS, which is the international organization, we have headbutts. I actually just recently headbutted one of my buddies at Nationals this past weekend, Arturo Rodriguez. We were fighting. And I was like, you know what? Just headbutt him. I headbutt him like 2 or 3 times. It's a lot of fun. It's a interesting thing. It doesn't, if you're doing it right, there's a lot of knockouts in it actually. If you hit them in the temple on the side of the head,
yeah.
Like in wrestling, you have that inside like head position,
right?
Rear back and headbutt someone real well. There's a decent amount of knockouts there with that. But it can be used in the opposite direction too. If you're throwing the headbutt, you are in danger of being thrown because you're having to shift your weight forward to make that happen. I don't know. They're a lot of fun to throw in there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and that really like, I mean, you think about it, it's a real life situation, man. I've seen headbutts in bar fights and things like that. And, it kind of gives you a little bit different perspective when you actually see somebody throw a headbutt around. And I've been headbutt. I've been split open from a headbutt. I've had concussions from headbutts. Like, you never know, man. So you got to be ready for it. You got to have a hard head too. That's part of it. You know,
Yeah,
you
you
do got to
definitely do. I
have
mean, Sambo
something.
stands for self-defense without weapons. So it was a military sport at first. Our goal is to be able to like basically kill someone is the original idea of Sambo. There was actually groin strikes that were legal until about 10 years ago. In competition, a lot of times it was kind of like looked at as dishonorable, but like the sport is meant to, you should be a lethal weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely if you look up some of those videos, it's it's very well put on display with that term that you just said, being a lethal weapon. Man, that's very interesting. What are some of your goals for your competition scene? Are you looking to get into the MMA scene and maybe get into the UFC, follow those footsteps? Where are you trying to go with your future career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to be a world champion in sport or combat sambo is one of the big ones. I plan on having an MMA fight May 23rd. That's the goal. It'll be my first amateur fight. So looking forward to that real well. Um, I want to see if maybe I can get back into judo. LA 2028, the US gets to fill out a full roster. All you have to be is the best in the US to go to the Olympics for judo, and that was my dream as a kid. So I'd like to hop into that. I'm trying to do everything. I'm trying to be a legend of the sport, get into the UFC. Shit, I'd like to see if I can get into the UFC, have my Alex Pereira arc, fight Merab in MMA.
Yeah, you
That's
never know,
that's the
man.
goal. The
That's what
Alex
it's
Pereira
about,
arc.
man. You gotta actually speak those things into existence sometimes and really force them to happen. But you have a history with that. I hear other things. I hear you have history with other UFC signed athletes and somebody on the UFC Fight Pass circuit. Somebody that just signed with the UFC from one, Mikey Musameshi. Like, tell me what's going on there. Do you got beef with Mikey, or what's going down with that?
Yeah, a little bit. He about 2 years ago he said all these sambo guys are saying they're better than jiu-jitsu. And I want to call out the Sambo world champion. Like, all right, well, at the time I was ranked number 1 in the world, tied with Asia and Europe. And I decided, you know what, let me take this call out. All right, Mikey, let's do it. Although I'd prefer no guard pulling, because I think I hate guard pulling. It just makes no sense to me. It's anti-combative.
Yes.
But Chael Sonnen, I messaged it to Chael Sonnen or I put it on Twitter. Chael Sonnen made a whole video about it, said that I got to enter in the rules of one championship because they're already there. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll beat him at his own game. So, yeah, I would have loved to fight Mikey. It didn't end up happening, but still willing to do it. It would be even better because he's dabbled in a little bit of striking. I was like, let me fight him in MMA. Let's see what's better in MMA. Jiu-Jitsu and guard pulling or Sambo and our great takedowns.
Did you ever get any sort of response from his people or him in specifically, or?
Yeah, Mikey actually responded to me. He said it'd be an honor to fight you, but it's up to one championship. So they didn't end up making it happen. Uh, yeah, it kind of sucks. I would have loved to do that. That would have been awesome. He ended up fighting
Yeah.
another Sambo guy and didn't go so well.
Do you foresee yourself ever running into him in the future and making it go down in maybe UFC Fight Pass or maybe even the UFC one day?
Hell yeah! I mean, I'll fight anyone. I'll do anything. Like if I make it to the UFC and he wants to do a fight pass submission grappling thing, I'm down to do it. Um, like
Are you familiar with the Mikey Lock?
oh yeah, I've seen it.
So what's your take on that being a sambo technician, man? Like how are you gonna combat the Mikey Lock if he just sits on his ass, scoots right towards you, and just goes and rolls into that shit?
I mean, I'm just gonna put a lot of heavy pressure downwards, do some pressure passing. Um, I try to avoid the legs as much as possible, but I mean, in Sambo we got plenty of leg locks, so I'm used to it well enough. I don't know. I'd probably, huh?
How,
I
how
don't.
how do you take a match with a guy that's not wanting to engage and maybe scooting the entire time as a technician, in judo that's great on the feet and like all right, I lose all of that, right? I'm not landing my throws into my submissions because this guy's just already on the ground sitting there. How do you combat that?
The big thing is, I mean, I'd have to go into jiu-jitsu, work on my passing a lot more. Um, just work on my passing. Like I'm not worried about submitting from guard or trying to while passing the guard. Um, I would work on very heavy pressure passing, like Nicky Rod style passing is what I would try to use because Sambo and Judo were very heavy on pressure. So like that kind of passing is where I would go with that. And then just being having super heavy top pressure, making him as uncomfortable as possible while being on the bottom. Forearms across the neck, heavy knee on, probably not knee on belly, um, but just putting as much pressure and putting them through as much pain while being on the bottom as possible um, is how I'd respond to that. And then probably going for some sort of armbar or like head and arm choke is where I'd go most likely. Just typical heavy pressure passer and pressure fighter techniques.
Yeah. How is it being a well-versed technician and you're a black belt in judo, right? And
Yes, sir.
being a black belt in one art and going into the jiu-jitsu room and tying up that blue belt and getting a little humbled from time to time by a jiu-jitsu practitioner. How does it feel transitioning from art to art?
I take it at face value most of the time. It doesn't really bother me. Whenever I go into jiu-jitsu, most of the time my goal isn't to do judo to the jiu-jitsu guys. It's to see if I can beat them at their own game. If they want to stand with me, I'll stand with them. I'll throw. But most of the time, I'm going in there. I'm playing guard. I'm working. I'm going into turtle on purpose so that I can get better at turtle defense for my sambo and judo matches. Um, I'm going in there to learn as more of a not a blank slate, but I'm going into jujitsu to do jujitsu and to learn from that process rather than to show them that I'm the best at judo or the best at sambo in their own space. When I go in and I compete in jujitsu, then that's the time for me to show those things. But when I go in and I'm trying to practice, it's not the time for that.
Do you do much jiu-jitsu competition or have you yet?
I haven't done too much. I did a local one a while back. Um, It was like a submission only. We went all 5 minutes. I got five submissions. I got five submission attempts, and then he only had two. But for some reason, they thought arm bars were better than leg locks, so I didn't end up getting the decision on that one. Um, but I don't compete all that much in jiu-jitsu. I did it on a whim. I wasn't really training. I don't like competing in jiu-jitsu. The rule set isn't not that it's not favorable. It's not what I enjoy.
It's just different than what you're acclimated to, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't favor the fighting style that I want to have. It's good to do no-gi jiu-jitsu, and I want to hop into some more just to get more time on the mat in a competition setting. Um, but like something like an ADCC rule set is something I'd probably enjoy. Uh, I just haven't had the time to get into it.
Yeah. Now with judo, correct me if I'm wrong. You said the weight cut or the weigh-ins typically can be the day before for certain competitions. Now, what are the weight cuts like? Are people losing tremendous amounts of weight to compete in a combat sambo or judo match or anything like that?
Absolutely. In combat sambo, most of the time people are cutting 20 plus pounds. Um, Like for example, I cut about 15 pounds for this most recent nationals. And it's the same thing as MMA guys do pretty much. I'm cutting carbs a week before at least. Obviously a month before I'm starting to cut back calories, lose a little bit of fat. About a week before I'm cutting out pretty much all carbs. I'm starting to do my water load, 2 gallons, 1 gallon, 2 liters, liter, and then nothing. And then we're doing sauna. I like the bathtub style cut where you get in hot water and you just sweat it out there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but it's
it's a very common one nowadays compared to back in the day. Everyone just went in the old school sauna, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've done that too whenever I've been international. Like, that's actually one of my favorite things to do internationally when I'm over in these like ex-Soviet countries. The banyas are really nice, so it's cool to go like experience these different cultures and how they do sauna and everything like that. They do the like little platza leaves. the traveling experiences through Sambo have been really cool. But yeah, the sauna is how I've done it before. The bathtub is easiest for me, but I'll throw on a sweatsuit and run too if I need to. Sweet sweat, sweatsuit, get to running.
Yeah. You brought up something I'm glad you did. You brought up the traveling aspect of what you do, and let's talk about that. But let's even dive a little bit deeper, right? You can be traveling to places or competing in some pretty dangerous places potentially, right? I'm guessing.
Let's see. I know Armenia last year or the year beforehand was on like a Americans shouldn't go there list, and I did end up almost riding a horse onto a Russian base while I was there. So that was a fun little story.
Yeah,
Um,
that could have been bad.
yeah, that was an accident, but I went trail riding and went a little too far. Um,
You hear of Thailand, people go to Thailand to compete, and there's pretty big competitions in front of the entire town, and you hear nothing but great things about the Thai culture and how accepting they are of the Americans coming over and wanting to learn the art. And without that, the arts really don't get to travel like they necessarily should, right?
yeah, I think that cross-cultural thing, like in the US especially, we have like a big connection with the Uzbek Federation. Um, and so we have like offers to go train over there. Um, and we just had an offer to bring some of our kids over to Russia to compete. Like that cross-cultural like contamination of the sports is actually very interesting. And I like seeing the different styles of different cultures and different countries in the sport. Um, I love that sort of stuff. Um, like you'll see like the Russians and the Eastern Europeans be very strong and big lifting throws. The South Americans are a little bit more playing on the outside, going for kind of like far away throws and poking and prodding. Americans have a very multicultural style. We don't really have our like one conglomerate style. Um, Same thing for the Mongolians. Mongolians are big lifting throws, and a lot of that has to do with their regional grappling styles. Things like Bok in Mongolia, you got Chidoba in Georgia. I mean, the Japanese Sambo guys have a very like technical judo style where it's like if they're planning on entering a throw, it's going to work. Like it's like if they're going full in for a throw, it's going to work. They're very, very good as well. Koreans too, very similar style in that way. They have very unique throws. Things like Korean Sayanagi where you grab this way and you go the wrong direction. Like a shoulder throw where you go the wrong direction. It's very interesting. I love those different regions and how they take their culture and put it into the sport.
Yeah, that's very unique. That's it's almost like a language dialect, right? Where you can go to certain parts of the United States, southern areas, and they speak a southern twang or a little bit different dialect, right? It's the same language, but a different dialect. And that's the same thing with the martial arts too, and you could be from a different country and it's just the style that you guys train and probably a lot has to do with body types and different things of that nature could be included in that, which is very interesting to think about, and especially if you think about the original martial arts and how they got to where they're at. And it's wild, man. Like without spreading the martial arts around the world, really, it doesn't open the entire book, I guess, is what I'm saying, right?
No, it doesn't. I don't. Actually kind of curious how that goes in jiu-jitsu because I've see jiu-jitsu seemed to be very American Brazil focused. Is there any of that in jiu-jitsu at all?
Yeah, it's definitely especially now jiu-jitsu is still growing. It's a younger sport compared to arts like judo. The original jiu-jitsu is founded from judo. So and kind of changed a little bit and adapted for the smaller type of body type. But now that, the jiu-jitsu has spread so much to the United States, the body type's now big and bulky. It's not for the smaller type anymore. So it does change. It's still evolving as a martial art. Just like everything always evolves with, judo, with sambo. It's still, evolving into what it will eventually forever be. And it'll continue to evolve from there. New generations will add different things to completely to make the art really better. Like over time, we don't get worse at these arts. If you pass them along the right way, eventually the entire art gets better.
Yeah, hopefully we do keep passing along. Because there's examples like something like pancration where it was kind of lost. So hopefully we don't end up going back in time with that sort of thing. So something similar to pancration or uh, no, catch wrestling is still around pretty well. That's actually a pretty interesting sport too.
I think with the evolution of like YouTube and the internet being what it is today, it's definitely it's harder to lose these types of things, as much as it used to be, right?
Oh, it is a lot harder to lose those sort of things. Like I post tutorials on YouTube all the time. I'll post judo tutorials, sambo tutorials, and judo and sambo for like armored combat stuff too. So the content is out there. There's plenty of people putting out content. It's something I actually really enjoy is doing that, is putting those tutorials out there. So yeah, hopefully we don't lose that sort of thing, and hopefully I'm part of keeping it around.
Yeah. You bring up armored combat. Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. A famous jujitsu guy in the scene posts a lot of that kind of stuff, and it looks like grappling with a suit of armor on, essentially, correct? And let's talk about. You told me earlier that you train people in that type of art, and how you got involved in that. Let's just dive deep on it.
Yeah, so I got into armored combat through teaching lessons to the owner of a club that does armored combat. He recognized that through their rules, where if they're taken down off their feet, they're killed. Teaching him judo. Judo is the most effective thing to do in armored combat to get the kill for them. So I started teaching them lessons and started getting more into the sport, put on a suit of armor myself. It really is crazy. It feels like judo in an extra 60 pounds. It is super exhausting, but really fun. So I'm trying to, well, I'm still learning it myself. I'm teaching people how to transfer those judo skills into armor, teaching seminars internationally, stuff like that. So it's a really crazy sport. And the combat sambo helps too, using knees to set up throws, um, kicks to help you enter in, punches, all those sort of things. It's a really cool sport. That armor is exhausting.
Oh, I can imagine. There's a famous boxer, Deontay Wilder. He fought a few years ago, and he wore this big old suit of armor out. And I think by the time he gets to the ring, he was super tired. And I think he lost his championship fight that night. And then after the fight, he blames the suit of armor he was wearing because he wasn't ready for how heavy it was. And I guess after they bedazzled it the right way, this suit of armor was, almost 100 pounds that he had to carry around, and he just wasn't ready for it. So, it's something you got to think about, man. It's very true, and having that kind of extra weight, are you still able to move around like you want to?
Oh, well, in the suit of armor, I was able to move around like I wanted to. I was still able to do throws pretty consistently in the armor. But no, it is exhausting, and that sounds like a really poor decision from Deontay Wilder, to be
Yeah.
honest. Walking out with 100 pounds to a title fight.
Yeah.
I don't
Famous
know why they
story.
didn't like fake the armor and not put actual metal. It's pretty
Right.
easy to fake those things nowadays.
Yeah.
So
3D printing with, foam and everything what it is, like it should be pretty easy, but yeah, definitely a big mistake on his team's part.
would have been a power move if he won, though, at the very least.
Yeah, it was a bad night for him, but you live and you learn with those types of things. Hopefully, you start, training in that medieval armored jujitsu and armored grappling, and and hopefully got his cardio a little bit better.
Yeah,
But
I've actually thought about hopping into it in the future when I'm done with MMA. I would definitely do. They have pro fights where it's in a cage, just like MMA. There's submissions, there's pins, everything like that. Since I've been involved with the sport, I wouldn't mind doing a boo hurt is what they call it, or armored MMA, pro fight. It'd be a lot of fun. Those guys are legit too. A lot of them are actually MMA fighters, or there's one guy I saw that's actually a bare knuckle fighter that hops in there. The sport's really cool, but I love their takedowns and how they're so takedown focused. It seems like all across like martial arts, takedowns are becoming really big in the market, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny if you think about it. You think how many UFC fighters do you think could go in there like undercover? You think John Jones could go in there undercover, wear a suit of armor, and just fuck everyone up?
Oh, that would be very hard for them to go in undercover, having to wear the helmet all day. Because, man, when you're in that helmet, it feels quite claustrophobic, and their tournaments are like 8 hour days or 8 hour. Like, yeah, it's a long day for those tournaments. So to go in undercover and not want to take that helmet off all day would be a pain. I'm sure John Jones would do great. I mean, the dude's super athletic. So I'm sure he would do fine. Sure, all the UFC fighters would do just fine in that sort of thing until they ran into a good sword fighter. Because some of those guys are very, very good at sword fighting, and
Yeah.
that's just as much of a skill as any other striking. So if you can be kept away with the sword, uh, yeah, that would be a little bit hard for some guys, but most would do fine.
Yeah. Taylor, who oversees like your training, and are you the only one involved in that, or do you have a manager or somebody involved, a parent, somebody helping you along with the journey?
So my dad oversees my coaching. He flies out and coaches. Um, And then for like the media side of things, I have Mary Catherine who does a lot of my media stuff. But most of the time, I'm also my own coach. Since I'm coaching, a lot of times I'm coaching myself. Plan on changing that. We also have the coaches at Sambo Nation. We got Julian Sanchez at Sambo Nation. He coaches me. But my primary coach is my father. He'll come out. I feel most comfortable with him at my back. Um, and in my corner. It's just like a comfort thing. Had him since I was a kid. Um, I don't want like if I had to choose one person to coach me, it's always my dad.
Do you feel like he holds you to a pretty high standard?
He holds me to an extremely high standard. It's all, almost annoying sometimes because I think I had a good practice and I'll send him the footage of my practice and I'm like, "Oh, I did this right. I did this right. Oh man, look at that. I did that. That was cool." And he's like, there's that little thing. There's that little thing. There's that little thing. And it's very useful. He helps me a lot. When I say it's annoying, I'm like, damn, sometimes um, it's like, give me a compliment first. But no,
Yeah.
he helps me out a lot. His criticism and his critiques of my game are extremely useful, and he's usually spot on with what he has to say and all that feedback. I can't complain at all. He's awesome.
Yeah, it's always a unique dynamic with a father-son coaching relationship. I've seen it where athletes really respond good from it. I've seen it also go south, and it's always interesting, a very successful fighter, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, always had his dad by his side, doing karate together since they were little, and it's always, it's a good thing that you guys can bond on that. It's really impactful that you guys can talk about those things. You guys can relate. He understands what you're doing, maybe what emotions you're going through in certain situations. So it's something to really like grasp a hold of and enjoy while you have it. We don't know how long our family members are around for, so you got to enjoy those moments, and really take in every second of that and really enjoy it, right?
Oh, I enjoy every bit of it. My sister did not. My sister hated being coached by my dad. I enjoy every bit of it. I love it. But no, yeah, I've seen that with a few guys like Wonderboy Thompson. Man, I can't think of another. There's another example in my head of guys that had their father as a coach. Um, but yeah, you can't beat it. It doesn't work. You're right. It doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, it
It
doesn't. Sometimes they clash and butt heads, and that's okay too, right? You got to understand, you got to sometimes separate that home life and that gym life sometimes, but sometimes it works too.
Yeah, no, that's something for me, like the home life and the gym life thing. Like I've tried home gyms or anything like that, doesn't work for me. I have to like go to the gym and work out. It has to be a separate thing in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. It's everyone responds differently, you know, and whatever gets you in the right state of mind, right? Whatever gets you prepared for your competitions is what matters. But Taylor, it's been awesome talking to you. It's been awesome having you on the podcast so we can kind of understand, this is Grapplers Talk, right? And it's not only jiu-jitsu, it's not only wrestling. I want to hear more from the judo scene. I want to hear more from the Sambo guys. So wherever you guys are, when you're out there, reach out. I want to hear from y'all, and definitely get a little bit different take. I love watching the sport, but I don't understand or I don't follow it quite as much as the others. So definitely having you guys on and having you specifically on to kind of educate us and get us well versed in it, man. That's what it's about, and making these connections all across the country too. But I like to give our guests just a few minutes to shout anybody out, man. Again, we thank you for your time and being a part of this. We wish you nothing but success in the future, but we'd just like to give you a couple minutes. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah. So go ahead, follow me on YouTube. Check out all my content there. Lots of tutorial stuff. You'll learn how to throw real well if you watch all that content. Then if you're in Fort Worth, come on by Sambo Nation Fort Worth. If you're in Dallas, come by Warlord Combat Academy and do judo with us Mondays and Wednesdays. You can stay for Sambo afterwards. We got Sambo Nation Dallas there too. Try out Boo Hurt, whatever you want. Sambo Nation Fort Worth is Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays. So come on out. You can train with me, all my guys, have some fun. I'm on Instagram as well, t.weber 64kg. Twitter there as well. Yeah, it's pretty much my handle everywhere. So go check all those things out. Come train. If any of y'all are stopping in Fort Worth just for fun, come on by.
Yeah. When's that MMA fight coming up again?
That MMA fight is May 23rd. Is the goal. Trying to find an opponent for that. But yeah, hopefully you'll see me in the UFC one day. Hopefully I'll get my Alex Pereira fight and get to fight Merab someday.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Maybe I'll go train with O'Malley and help him out a little bit.
I'm sure he'd love that. I think there's supposed to be a rematch coming soon. I don't know.
Exactly.
That's supposed to be coming up. So I'm excited for you, man. I wish you nothing but continued success in your future endeavors. Once again, fans, thank you for being a part of this episode of Grapplers Talk. You can like us on Instagram, follow us on all that fun stuff, Facebook, Spotify. Go give us a review. It helps us out tremendously when it comes to being discoverable on those platforms. But thank you again, fans, for tuning in. This has been another great episode of Grapplers Talk. This is Dave, and we are out.
This is Grapplers